Charles, happy Thanksgiving. I tried to come up with some sort of a Thanksgiving theme movie, but I couldn't think of anything. How are you?
Well, I'm great, Jason, and hi to the viewers. And this is a wonderful substitute. Did you see that story today about apparently Squanto, the Indian? And by the way, I think Squanto was in England well before, or there was an Indian who made it to England. I should say a Native American in the early 1600s, before the Mayflower. But did you see the story about how for Thanksgiving the tradition would have been that we eat eels
Eels?
because because apparently there's a long story that apparently these eels that are around in in Massachusetts, where Squanto and the Pilgrims were, in the winter to retain warmth, they get together and they gather in these gigantic uh, masses of eels, and the Indians used to eat them. And
Uh-huh.
that's nearly what we celebrated. Thank God they decided to serve the bird, which, I'm not a big, I'm not a huge Thanksgiving bird dude. I like, high quality beef. I actually think the best Thanksgiving meals I've ever had are ones that are, where they give you everything, a big, huge buffet,
Uh-huh.
whatever you want, put it all together, as opposed to turkey, because it's actually very tough both to pardon a turkey, as we saw recently, where Joe Biden tells the turkey, "Don't jump, man, don't jump." Do you see that?
I heard about I just can barely stand to look at Joe Biden. But Charles, we could have had the Squanto Omakase Thanksgiving. Eel's not bad.
So you say, the more for you, more for you. And at least we don't have to worry about Beyond Meat. It seems like the bloom is off that rose. It's not doing well in the market anymore.
That's a terrible product, but just briefly on the poster, Charles, I think a lot of people have been made aware that there is a new Avatar movie coming out, and today we're going to discuss JOVATAR, the way of the moron. We're going to be having the bulk of our discussion in the First Amendment Forum, and people will be able to join us for that, Charles, on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth, patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. And now on Odyssey.com, people go to Odyssey.com and search for Crowdsource the Truth. You can join and become a member. There's a lot of advertising going on for this Avatar movie coming out, something like, I don't know, 15 years after the first one. I am not going to see this movie, Charles. I just read that it's going to be 3 hours and 10 minutes. And I mean, what the hell are you
Huh.
going to look at for that long? I got stuff to do. Tell me what's going on with these blue people in like 95 minutes, and I got to get the hell out of here.
Well, I think if you're going to go up to 3 hours and 10 minutes, there's no question you got to watch the 5 hour video from January 6th, produced by the great Jason Goodman,
Oh.
and perhaps starring in a minor way yours truly.
Charles, I'm very
And
glad
that,
that you brought this up because a viewer has made a stunning discovery in this video. And I know a lot of people have watched our January 6th video where we went to Washington, D.C. Once we get to the First Amendment Forum, we're going to be going into great detail about this segment of video that includes this guy in the lower left, if people can see that. I think people know who this is.
I, I
And
thought
this
Rush Limbaugh was dead.
this could be breakthrough evidence. And people say, well, are you putting evidence behind a paywall? We're not putting evidence behind a paywall. This evidence has been given to several people who are going to be doing things with it, hopefully over the next couple days. But we just discovered this almost 2 years after recording it. And I actually have learned some things since you pointed it out to me, Charles, that I think you are going to be stunned when we go over this footage.
Well, yeah, and a brief note to our viewers. Not only in the United States of America are we concerned that we have we have a government that is hostile to the people, in my view. And we have a government that has been politicized, so that anybody who dissents and we are certainly dissenting from the course that we're on, it needs to be worried about what the government might do. So not only are we concerned about the government of the United States, but it happens that I am not inside the United States. And so I hope our view at the moment, and I hope our viewers will understand that we need to take precautions as we go through this to respect the concerns that our own government may have about trying to stop people like us from exposing the massive fraud and corruption in which they are not just leading, but participating. I mean, participating, but leading. You also have to be concerned about what the various governments might have think about this in the places where I may or may not be at the moment.
Correct. And that's the reason why we're using the First Amendment forum.
Right.
A lot of people like to complain, but the overwhelming majority of Crowdsource the Truth viewers, Charles, they understand. And not only that, they want to support the show. They see that everything that you're saying is true. You know, to the extent that I am the conduit through which Crowdsource the Truth is created, I've obviously experienced personal attacks. The channels have experienced personal attacks. I think it's also going to become very important to note that there are certain specific people who are taking actions to remove videos from YouTube. And when we start finding evidence of extremely serious crimes in those videos, and separately, I start putting together evidence that causes me to believe that some of these people may have additional affiliations that we may not have known about previously, it starts to become deliberate destruction of evidence and perhaps a larger, bigger concern than simply crapping around with my YouTube channel.
Exactly. And you know what I think we've been able to demonstrate, you more than I, because you do many other great shows beyond the ones we do together, is that malign actors who want to try to influence the way society thinks about important issues have enormous resources to shape public opinion. They control what remains of the mainstream press, but they also, until recently, had a lot of influence over social media. And I think we'll talk about this in some great depth shortly in the First Amendment Forum, but we need to go back over issues almost systematically, issues that you and I brought up in these broadcasts contemporaneously, because we tend to land on them early. And the screams and howls of the people who react and say, oh, it's conspiracy theory or it couldn't possibly be right. The number of issues that we have pointed out to people early on, to great consternation by the other side, that are now being reviewed. I mean, take, for example, Catherine Herridge, who, when she was at Fox News with Fox, refused to report on the Hunter Biden laptop story in the degree that it was important to report on that story. And now all of a sudden we're hearing, oh, wait a minute, you know, the Hunter Biden laptop was real all along.
Yeah.
I mean, that issue alone did sway. Many people have said in the mainstream and otherwise, it certainly swayed the 2020 election. That issue alone.
Charles, look at how careful they are with their language. Here's a copy of what's believed to be Hunter Biden's laptop. It's got his penis and crack pipe all over it, but it's just believed to be his. When it comes to Donald Trump, he's for sure working for the Russians 6 years ago, and every day they write anything about it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in some considerable length in the First Amendment Forum, so we don't get crushed. But you're right, and you know, just the whole. When I look at complex issues, which sometimes I do, it really helps to take a gigantic step back and try to think about them in their simplest terms. Joe Biden and the Biden family are a bunch of reprobate, unprosecuted criminal thieves who own the assets that they do own today because they've been grifting against the interests of the American people for maybe 5-6 decades. 6 decades, actually.
Yeah.
Biden has been in political office for 6 decades. And that's why he has the fancy Mustang. That's why he has 2 mansions.
Corvette.
That's why he has the fancy clothes. That's why he has the cash, you know, to sponsor this wedding in the White House for his granddaughter. And there are nothing but unanswered questions about the Biden family and how they derive their wealth, whereas Donald Trump and his family have been involved in the legitimate production of wealth for over a century, and they've been successful at it. So of course they have a lot of money. And the
Charles,
average
did you
people,
see this?
I can't see it actually. What is
Cover
it?
of Vogue Exclusive, Naomi Biden on her wedding at the White House. Are you telling me that no money changed hands, no advertisers benefited from this? I mean, this is like, what is she, Beyonce? She's on the cover of Vogue? This is ridiculous.
Is that Joe Biden holding her?
Yeah. Oh, that was Jill. We've got to get to the sniffing section if you want to see Joe.
No, this is outrageous. I mean, I have, going way back in time in college, my freshman year roommate, and who today still remains a good friend. I won't say who he is exactly. His mother was the editor of Cosmopolitan. And, I know from then, and I know from just life, that this type of a shoot, I mean, it's not like Vogue has no options whenever it comes out, as to what to put on the cover. I mean, they're in there, they're trying to figure out, should we put, as you say, Beyonce, should we put this idiot Biden person? And yeah,
the production meeting.
Right. Do we do the idiot or do we do Beyonce? Well, she's not that smart. She's pretty, anyway. So, that clearly there's a big record here of, what Vogue had to promise and what the Bidens offered and who negotiated all this stuff.
Right.
Meanwhile, you got the diesel fuel supply dwindling. You've got mayhem in our cities. You've got an open southern border. You got a stock market that could implode. You've got crises around the world. Nobody knows what we lost in Afghanistan. This fucking moron, excuse my language, is hosting a wedding in the people's house, saving his own family a lot of money, probably not paying what he should have paid for that venue. I mean, how many billionaires in the United States of America would like to have their granddaughter get married in the White House? I mean, maybe that's what we need to do to reduce the debt.
But Charles,
you want to do something.
How does he ban the press and then Vanity Fair gets an exclusive? Doesn't that even make the Vanity Fair coverage of it that much more valuable? They're the only ones who have it.
As near as I can tell, I mean, it's probably Biden who's on the phone with the leader of North Korea saying, I like your uniform. Where'd you get that uniform done? I'm thinking of getting one for myself here. I mean,
ban journalists from covering any part of his granddaughter's wedding. This reeks to me.
I think you could do that. Like if you're going to, if I don't have any grandchildren, but if I did and I wanted to hold a wedding in my personal property, even if I was the president of the United States, I think I could ban the press from attending a personal family event. But the second you say you're going to do it at the White House, forget that. What's he going to do next? I mean, you could say, who wants to land their private plane on an aircraft carrier? If you send Hunter a check, right,
no, nobody's allowed to, but we are.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, he could start like monetizing the whole federal government. I mean, who wants to be? You could have like a corps of honorary ambassadors. You could get a special badge, and you could get courtesy of the port privileges. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's where if you know people in politics, you instead of going through the to-do of going through customs the way most people do, you're met and you're taken through customs by somebody. That's called courtesy of the port. And there are all sorts of privileges that might be extended. You could come along as the Clintons monetized. Is that what this idiot is doing? I mean,
I would think.
And I guess the mainstream press is like, oh yeah, we don't care.
No, they don't care. And Charles, actually, I've allowed time to slip away from us here, but we need to make our transition over to the First Amendment Forum. It's going to take me just a minute to do that. So people will have some time. If you're not yet a sponsor on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or odyssey.com, please join us on there. It's going to be, the First Amendment Forum will begin at 3:30. And people can watch that on either of those three channels. If you are viewing on Odyssey, it's important to take note that, first of all, you can see yesterday's really exciting counter lawfare report as Robert David Steele's lawsuit is in big trouble. But when you come over here to Odyssey, there's a membership tab. And if you just tap on that, you can become a member and you're going to get access to the sponsor exclusive content. But we'll be back just 15 minutes from right now. Join us on the First Amendment Forum. Looking forward to seeing everybody there, and a huge thank you to the viewer sponsors that make every show on Crowdsource the Truth possible. Thanks for watching.